The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Vijay. Am I audible? Please do respond if I am audible. You can respond through chat. Good morning, everyone. Are you able to see the screen? Good morning, everyone. I'm Sumitra from Tally Education team. Today the session is about GCC VAT using Tally ERP9. So in this session, we will learn how to use GCC VAT using Tally ERP9. We will run through the presentation. In case in between, if you have any doubts, please chat and don't hesitate to ask any doubts in between. So based on the flow, we will address your doubts. Let us now understand the brief update on GCC VAT. GCC stands for Gulf Cooperation Council. It is a regional, intergovernmental, political and economical union consisting member states of Arab states. Let us now understand the Arab states. So Arab states are UAE, Kingdom of Bahrain, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Sultanate of Oman, State of Qatar and State of Kuwait. So all this comes under Arab states. Please let me know if I'm fast or slow. Let us now understand the VAT registration. So for mandatory registration, the turnover limit is AED 3,75,000 and for voluntary registration, it is a 50% of the mandatory registration turnover. So it is AED 1,87,500. The established business which is involved in economic activities in GCC must register for VAT if their total supplies exceeds the threshold of AED 3,75,000. The other businesses can voluntarily register for VAT if their turnover is 50% of the mandatory threshold limit. We will move on to the next topic, that is registered dealer must pay and file VAT returns with the Federal Tax Authority. So businesses who are registered under UAE VAT, for UAE, they have to pay tax and file VAT returns with FTA. FTA stands for Federal Tax Authority. For the businesses registered in Saudi Arabia, they must pay tax and file VAT returns with Gazette. So General Authority for Zakat and Tax. So I will just any doubts, please don't hesitate. You can chat and ask for the doubts. We will move on to the next slide. As you all are aware that GCC country is implemented with VAT, they have introduced with standard rate of 5%. So VAT is charged at 5% on the supply of goods and services, and the time of period of VAT return is monthly or quarterly. They have to file the VAT returns on monthly basis or quarterly basis. TRN stands for tax registration number. For each person who has registered for VAT in UAE, a unique tax registration number is issued by the authority. So it is of 15 digit. TRN stands for tax registration number. It is the number given by Federal Tax Authority to the registered person in UAE. So it is of 15 digit. TIN, tax identification number. For each person who has registered for VAT in Saudi Arabia, a unique TIN is issued by the authority. So the person registered for VAT in Saudi Arabia is given with TIN number. TIN is nothing but tax identification number. And even this is of 15 digit. Tourist scheme. So under UAE VAT, there is a scheme called as tourist scheme. What is the use of the scheme? So overseas tourists buying goods and returning to their country can claim VAT at the time of exit from UAE. For example, if a tourist purchases any goods in UAE while returning from UAE, they can claim for the input tax. Input tax is nothing but the tax which is paid while purchasing the goods or services. So the next topic is terminologies used in GCC VAT. Let us now understand the terminologies used in GCC VAT system. Output tax. So what is output tax? This is the tax charged on sale of goods and services. The tax which is charged while making sale of goods and services is called as output tax. Input tax. This is the tax paid on purchase of goods and services. While making a purchase, whatever the VAT you are paying is called as input tax. Tax invoice. What is tax invoice? Tax invoice is nothing but the same sales invoice format in which supply of goods or services are recorded with VAT details. So we are recording the supply of goods and services details with VAT. Unregistered dealer. Who is unregistered dealer? Unregistered dealer is a person who is not registered under VAT. So the unregistered dealer, as is not registered under VAT, he will not be able to collect the VAT and claim for input tax credit. Recipient of goods. Recipient of goods is a person to whom the goods are supplied. The person who is receiving the goods is called as recipient of goods. Recipient of services. Similar to this, the person to whom the services are supplied. The person who is receiving the services is called recipient of services. Reverse charge. So what is reverse charge? Let us understand what is reverse charge. In case of imports or purchase of goods or services from unregistered dealer. So purchase of taxable goods or services from unregistered dealer. So what is happening is the person one who receives the goods, one who purchases has to pay the tax to the department. Say for example, if I am purchasing some goods from unregistered dealer will not charge VAT as he is unregistered. So behalf of him, I will generate liability and then pay that amount to the department. By doing this, I will get input tax credit. So as it is my purchases, I will be able to avail the input tax credit to the extent of tax which I have made a payment to the department. So this is called reverse charge, where the tax is paid by the recipient instead of the service provider or the seller. So this happens in case of imports and purchase of goods and services from unregistered dealer. Exempt supply. The supply of goods or services which are exempted from tax is called exempt supply. So there are certain goods which comes under exempted list. So those goods will be called as exempt goods. So if we are making those supply, it is called as exempt supply. Taxable supply. The next one is taxable supply. The supply of goods and services which are taxable or called taxable supply. Input tax credit. What is input tax credit? So input tax credit is popularly known as ITC. ITC stands for input tax credit. It is a benefit given to the registered dealer. So what is the benefit here is the amount of tax paid on purchase is allowed to reduce from the output tax by taxable person. For example, if I'm making a purchase, so I'm purchasing a taxable goods, so I'm paying 5% of my tax to the purchase to the seller. So what happens when I'm making a sale of the same item? So whatever the tax I charge, so I reduce the tax which I have already paid and then pay the remaining amount to the department. So this is called input tax. Input tax is availed by the registered dealer. So any doubts? So far any doubts? Please do let me know if you have any doubts before we start the agenda of the day. Can you please confirm? Hope you all are able to follow the session. We will move on to the agenda. In today's agenda, we will learn VAT configuration in the company, purchase and sale of taxable goods, accounting of intra-GCC transactions, intra-GCC supply, intra-GCC purchase, purchase returns and sales returns, advance receipts, export to outside GCC countries, inclusive of tax, zero-rated supplies, accounting services, printing of VAT invoice, payment of VAT to tax authority, VAT report analysis, filing of return, and generation of Federal Tax Authority audit file. The next would be question and answer session. Thanks for the response, Miss Milka and Jyoti. We will move on to product walkthrough. In Tally ERP9, we can handle VAT transactions with ease and the VAT reports gets generated automatically. So using a business scenario, let us create the company in Tally and understand the VAT feature. Al Shirawi Trading Company, Dubai, deals in buying and selling of coffee beans to different distributors and retailers, and also the products are exported to other GCC countries as well as outside the GCC countries. So in order to record this business scenario in Tally ERP9, let us create Al Shirawi Trading Company in Tally ERP9. We will move on to Tally ERP9 and create the company Al Shirawi Trading Company. To create company in Tally ERP9, I have just started Tally ERP9. I'll select the option Create Company. So let us create the company as Al Shirawi Trading Company. Mailing name appears automatically. We can even change the mailing name if required. Can provide the address details. I'll select the country as UAE. I'll select the country as UAE. You can observe as soon as I enter U, the list of company screen is reducing. So only to the extent of the U, I'm getting the list. I'll select UAE. On selecting UAE, I'm getting the list of Emirates. So here, let us select the Emirates. As per the business scenario, it is Dubai. I'll select Dubai. We can enter the contact details here. As the financial year begins from 1st Jan and ends on 31st December, so the financial year is appearing as 1st Jan. I'll accept it. You can observe one thing. So as soon as the country is selected as UAE, the option Enable VAT is getting enabled. So it is set to yes. I'll press enter. Here it is asking for TRN. TRN stands for tax registration number. It is of 15 digit. So I will enter a dummy registration number as of now. I have entered the registration number. Registration date. You can provide the registration date. Periodicity. Here you have an option to select the periodicity. So let me go with monthly. Based on the country selection, the base currency information details gets captured automatically. As I've selected the country as UAE, the base currency symbol and the formal name is appearing automatically in Tally. Accepting the company creation screen. So company is created in Tally RP9. After creating a company, so we have already enabled the VAT in the company creation screen. For those who have not enabled the VAT during company creation, so to enable VAT from Gateway of Tally, click on F11 features, statutory and taxation. Select statutory and taxation. Here, the option enable VAT is already enabled. This is because we have enabled in the company creation screen. So it is taking from company creation screen. Emirate is also selected. TRN number is appearing. Registration date is appearing. Periodicity is selected. Here we will enable the option set or alter VAT details. What is the standard rate of VAT which is charged in GCC countries? It is 5%. So here we have three taxability such as exempt, taxable and zero rated. Let us now understand what is exempted supplies. So when we select exempt supplies, the goods and services like healthcare and education services, sale and lease of residential property and financial services comes under exempt supplies. So if a company is dealing with only these supplies, they can select exempt supply. We are enabling VAT in the company level. So like you have to consider like what is your supply, like most used supply, and based on that you have to select the taxability. So here we will select taxable and enter the tax rate. So tax rate is appearing by default. We need not have to enter the tax rate here. I'll accept the screen. We have created a company and enabled VAT in the company. Let us now start transaction in the company. Let us now start recording the transactions in the company. So we will record this transaction. It is a domestic taxable transaction. As on 1st Jan, Al Shirawi Trading Company purchased the following goods from Makmal Traders, UAE. The Al Shirawi Trading Company is registered in UAE, and the person from whom the purchase is made is also registered in UAE. This means that the transaction is taking place within the country, and hence it is termed as domestic taxable supply. So if the transaction is taking place within the country, it is called as domestic taxable supply. To record this transaction, we will have to create masters in Tally RP9. So let us now create the required masters. Please let me know if I am fast. The required masters are taxable purchase. We have to create taxable purchase ledger. To create, I'll go for accounts info, ledgers, create. taxable purchase. Under purchase accounts, from the screen, click F12 configure and do enable the option set nature of transaction for ledgers. On enabling this option, you will have an option to select the nature of transaction. So the nature of this transaction is domestic purchase taxable. So here I'll select the nature as domestic taxable purchases. Taxability is taxability by default it is taking as taxable. Tax rate is appearing by default. You have an option to select the type of supply. As this is for goods, I'll go with goods. I'll accept. Any doubt in creating the purchase ledger, taxable purchase ledger? So taxable purchase ledger is created under purchase accounts. The nature of transaction we have selected domestic taxable purchases and the taxability as taxable. Tax rate is 5%. Type of supply is selected as goods. I'll accept the ledger. We have to create the party ledger from whom we are purchasing. We are purchasing from Makmal traders. As per this illustration, we are purchasing from Makmal Traders UAE. So let me create Makmal Traders. It's created under sundry creditors as is a supplier. Enable the option maintain balances bill by bill. Country and emirate is selected. You have to provide TRN number of the party. Party TRN must be entered. I've entered the 15-digit TRN number. I'm accepting the party master. The next required master is stock item. We have to create the stock item and unit of measure. Coffee beans is measured in kgs. Let us create coffee beans. Stock item as coffee beans. In order to create from gateway of tally, I'll go for inventory info, stock items, create coffee beans, units. You can either create units from inventory info menu or press Alt C to create units. Units has to be created as kgs. Taxability, it is taxable. Tax rate 5%. Select type of supply as goods and accept the stock item creation screen. So as per this illustration, we have created taxable purchase ledger, Makmal traders ledger and the stock item coffee beans. So as this is taxable purchases, we need VAT ledger to be created. So let us now create VAT ledger. In order to create VAT ledger, from ledger creation screen, let me create VAT ledger under duties and taxes. VAT ledger is created under duties and taxes. Type of duty tax is selected as VAT. Rounding method, we will select not applicable. I'm accepting the VAT ledger creation screen. Now we have all the masters ready to record the transactions, to record the purchase transaction. From gateway of tally, select accounting voucher. Go for purchase, F9 purchase. So from purchase voucher, let us record the transaction. So the transaction is on 1st Jan 2020. I'll give the supplier invoice number. Date appears automatically. Party is Makmal Traders. Selecting the purchase ledger as taxable purchase. Stock item as coffee beans. Quantity of purchase is 1000 kgs. Rate is 200 AED. Amount appears automatically. So if you press enter once, the cursor moves for selection of next stock item. So we have only one stock item in this transaction. I'll select end of list. You will get an option to select the tax ledgers, list of ledgers. Here, let me select VAT ledger. VAT. You can see VAT is getting calculated here. In order to view the calculations, like how the calculation is happening, from the same screen, you can click Alt-A tax analysis. I'll click on Alt-A tax analysis. In this screen, you will be able to view the assessable value and the tax rate. So assessable value is 2 lakh and the tax rate is 5%. So it comes to 10,000 AED. I'll press escape to come back to accounting voucher screen, purchase voucher screen. Let me press enter and accept this transaction. Before accepting, make sure to enable Billwise detail screen. So I'll click F12 configure. Use defaults for bill allocation is set to yes. I'll disable this option. I'll tell you why this option is important. In case if you have any purchase returns or sales returns, you need a reference to track. So that is the reason we are enabling, by default, this bill allocation was set to yes. I'm making this option to no so that I will be getting Billwise detail screen while recording the transactions. I'll select new reference and accept the transaction. Any doubts? So far, if you have any doubts, please feel free to ask. I'm accepting the transaction. After recording this transaction, let us see the VAT implication of this transaction in the VAT report. To view VAT report from Gateway of Tally, we will go to Display, Statutory Reports, VAT, VAT 201, VAT Form 201. So here, you have to click F2 period and change the period. I have recorded the transaction for the month of Jan. So I have provided the period as Jan. You can see that the VAT purchases is reflecting in VAT Form 201 under local purchases. So the nature whatever we have selected, domestic taxable purchases at 5% is appearing here. You can also view that the purchase, we have only recorded the purchase transaction and it is appearing as refundable. What does it mean? Whatever the purchases we have made, so we will be getting input tax credit on the purchases. So we are liable to avail the input tax credit. So if we do not have any output, then the tax which is paid during purchases is treated as refundable and it gets carried forward to the next tax period. Are you able to follow? Hope you all are able to follow the session. We have recorded the domestic taxable purchase transaction. Let us move on to the next transaction. As on 2nd Jan, Al Shirawi Trading Company sold the following taxable goods to Fresh Beans, Dubai with reference number 1. So now the required ledgers to be created for this transaction is fresh beans and taxable sales ledger. We are supposed to create taxable sales ledgers and a party ledger with the name fresh beans. Let us now create the ledgers required from Gateway of Tally. You can also see the highlighted buttons. I'll click on A. It takes me to accounts info, L for ledger, create. So I'll create the required masters. Taxable sales. Let us create the ledger as taxable sales. Under sales account, nature of transaction as it is domestic taxable supplies. So I'm selecting here as domestic taxable supplies. Taxability and tax rate appears automatically. I'll accept the transaction. Taxable sales transaction is accepted. I'll create the party as fresh beans. Under sundry debtors, do enable the option maintain balances bill by bill. So as the party is also from UAE, Dubai, select the VAT registration type as regular and provide the TRN number. I'll accept the party ledger. Now we will record the sales transaction. To record the sales transaction, I'll go for accounting voucher, F8 sales, F2 date. Let's change the date to 2nd Jan. Enter the reference number. Select the party fresh beans. Select taxable sales ledger. Select the stock item coffee beans. Enter the quantity as 500 kgs. I'll enter rate. Now we have to select the VAT ledger. So VAT is getting calculated. To view the tax analysis, you can click Alt A, tax analysis, Alt F1 to view the tax analysis in detailed mode. I'll press escape and come back to accounting voucher screen. Here you have an option provide VAT details. So let us check what is this option. I'll enable this option. Here you have overseas tourist. So we have already understood what is this overseas tourist. If you are making a sales to a tourist, so if I make this option as yes, he will be able to avail input tax credit while exiting from UAE. Exiting from UAE. So let me not enable this option. I'll accept this transaction. Now let us view the tax implication of this transaction in Form 201. I'll go for display, statutory reports, VAT Form 201. So provide the period. You can view that the sales outwards, local supplies, domestic taxable supplies at 5%. So the taxable value is 1,50,000 and the tax amount is 87,500. Now we can understand, let us analyze how this refundable amount is getting calculated. So refundable amount is getting calculated based on this. The purchase, whatever the tax we have made while making purchases is 10,000 AED, and while making a sales, we have collected 7,500 AED. So 10,000 minus 7,500 AED is 2,500. This is your VAT refundable amount. So Tally is automatically calculating this VAT refundable or payable amount. Any doubts? If you have any doubts till now, please do ask me, or please confirm if we are good to continue the session. Please do response. I'm not able to view your chats. Please response. Thank you for the response. We will continue the session. If you have any questions, you can also raise it through questions option. Thank you for the responses. We will continue the session. We will move on to the next transaction. So the next illustration is accounting of intra-GCC transaction. So before we start with accounting of intra-GCC transaction, let us understand what is intra-GCC transaction. Intra-GCC transactions occur when the supply of goods or services happen between two different GCC countries. So intra-GCC transaction is the transaction which takes place between two different GCC countries. For example, if a company is registered in UAE and makes a sales to company registered in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, then the transaction between them is termed as intra-GCC transaction. Hope you all are clear with intra-GCC transactions. If a company is registered in UAE and making sales to a registered company in Saudi Arabia, so then it is called as intra-GCC transaction. Supplies between two different GCC countries is called as intra-GCC transactions. So now let us record the sales transaction between two different GCC countries. As on 3rd Jan, Al Shirawi Trading Company sold the following taxable goods to Yoni Coffee KSA, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So in order to record this transaction, we require two ledgers to be created. One is Yoni Coffee and the other one is intra-GCC sales ledger. Intra-GCC sales ledger. So let us now move on to Tally and create the required masters. As you by now, as you all are aware, like how to create ledgers, I will quickly create the required ledgers. Intra GCC supply. Let us create the ledger with the name intra GCC supply. So it has to be grouped under sales account as we are making supply. We are making sales. Nature of transaction. So nature of transaction is selected as intra GCC supplies. So these intra-GCC supplies are exempted from tax. So whatever the transaction which is happening from one GCC country to another GCC country, so the sales between one GCC country to another GCC country is exempted. So here let me select the nature of transaction as intra-GCC supplies. So the taxability by default it is selecting as 0 rated as the tax is not applicable. Let me select type of supply as goods. I'll accept the ledger. Let me create party ledger, Yoni Coffee under sundry debtors as is a customer I've enabled the option maintain balance as bill by bill. Now country selection. What is the country to be selected? The country to be selected is Saudi Arabia. Let me select Saudi Arabia. For Saudi Arabia, it is giving us VAT number. Let us enter the VAT number. And accept the ledger. We are now good to record the transaction. So we are supposed to record the transaction as on 3rd Jan 2020. So we are making a sale of 500 quantity of coffee bean at 350 rupees per kg. Sorry, at AD 350 per kg. I'll enter the reference number. Select the party as Uni Coffee. I'll select the sales ledger as intra GCC supply. Name of item coffee beans. I'll enter the quantity and rate as per the illustration. As it is zero rated supply, we are not supposed to charge VAT on this transaction. So let me click Alt A. You can view that the tax rate and duty of taxes not getting calculated. I'll accept this transaction. So after recording the transaction, let us view the VAT report. To view from Gateway of Tally display, statutory report, VAT 201. You can view that the transaction is appearing under GCC supplies, intra GCC supplies. So the transaction is appearing under the head GCC supplies, intra GCC supplies. So from this screen, you can press enter to drill down to transaction level. I'll press enter from intra GCC supplies. Here I'm getting the list of vouchers. In order to go to the voucher alteration screen, I'll press Control Enter. So we have a provision to drill down from report to transaction level. We are done with accounting of intra-GCC transactions. Now let us move on to the next illustration. Accounting of intra-GCC purchase transaction. In case of intra-GCC purchase, reverse charge is applicable. As per their FTA, for intra-GCC purchase, reverse charge is applicable. So under reverse charge mechanism, what happens? The tax is paid by the recipient of goods or services, and the same can be claimed from the authority after payment of tax. So we already understood what is reverse charge. If I'm making a purchase, then in case of reverse charge, I will generate the liability behalf of the seller and then pay it to the department. Then I will avail for the input tax credit. So let us now see how this is handled in Tally ERP9. Al Shirawi Trading Company imported the following taxable goods from a regular dealer, Al Rafi Coffee KSA. So let us now record this transaction and create the necessary masters required to record this transaction. So we require two ledgers. One is Al Rafi Coffee Party Master. The other one is intra GCC purchase transaction. Intra GCC purchase ledger. So in order to create that ledger, let us go to ledger creation screen. Sorry for the interruption. We will create the purchase ledger as intra GCC purchase. Under purchase accounts, nature of transaction. Nature of transaction need to be selected as intra GCC taxable purchases. So in intra GCC purchase, we have 4 types of nature. A few items. There are 4 type of nature of transaction. One is intra GCC exempt purchase, intra GCC subsequent purchase, and intra GCC taxable and zero rated purchase. We will select here as taxable purchase, intra GCC taxable purchase. In case of taxable purchase, the recipient of goods is liable to collect the tax, liable to generate the tax liability and pay it to the department. I've created intra GCC purchase ledger. I'll accept this ledger. Create the party as Al Rafi Coffee. Under sundry creditors, as is a supplier belonging to Saudi Arabia. Enter the VAT number. I'll accept the party creation screen. Any doubts till now? Hope this is clear. If you have any doubts, you can ask through questions section. You can raise your questions. Can you all respond if you have any, if you do not have any doubts? Please let me know if I'm clear. Are you all able to follow? Thank you, Ms. Milka. Thank you for the response. We will continue. We are ready with the masters. Let us now record the transaction. To record the transaction, I'll go for accounting voucher, purchases. So we will record the transaction as on 4th Jan. F2, change the date, enter the supplier invoice number, date appears automatically. Party, let us select Al Rafi Coffee. We will select intra GCC purchase. Intra GCC purchase, select the name of item as coffee beans, 500 quantity, 250 is the rate. Taxable value, so taxable value is considering as 1,25,000. To view the tax implication in this transaction, we are not charging VAT because as a recipient of goods, I will generate the liability in my books of accounts. It is just a purchase transaction. The party is just, we are purchasing from the party. So party will not charge VAT. So behalf of him, we will generate the liability and pay it to the department. To view the tax implication, I'll click Alt-A tax analysis. You can see here the amount of tax is subject to reverse charge. In case of intra-GCC taxable purchase, the recipient of goods is liable to pay the tax to the department, and for whatever tax he is paying, he will be getting a benefit. What is the benefit? Input tax credit. So he will get the input tax credit, which he can reduce it from his output tax and pay the remaining amount of tax payable to the department. So as per this transaction, the duty which needs to be calculated is 6,250. But in this transaction, we will not calculate it. We will generate it separately. So you will understand in the next transaction. So this amount of tax is subject to reverse charge. This is the information which we are getting from tax analysis screen. I'll press escape and come back to the voucher. Select the reference and accept this transaction. So the purchase transaction is done. Now let us check the report. To check the report, display statutory reports, VAT. So under VAT reports, we have so many other reports as well. So let us check what is this reverse charge report. So now the transaction which we have charged is attracting reverse charge. So we will go to reverse charge report here and immediately change the period. To view the reverse charge report or any VAT reports, once you enter to the report, press F2 and change the period and provide the current period. So here you can observe that the transaction is appearing here. Date of the voucher, party, and what is the nature of the transaction. The transaction recorded using purchase voucher, voucher number, supplier invoice number, and the date, supplier invoice date, total amount, rate of tax, and tax amount. Taxable amount and tax amount is appearing. And the summary of tax liability. This column is very important for understanding. So intra GCC taxable purchases. Tax amount is 1,25,000 and total liability is 6,250. So liability booked, have we booked the liability? No, we have just recorded the purchase transaction. So that is the reason here it is not appearing. And the balance liability to be booked. So here we are getting the balance liability which needs to be booked and paid from the I have to pay. We have to pay as a company has to pay. Recipient of goods has to pay. We will also check VAT 201 form. We can see that GCC purchase, intra-GCC taxable purchases is appearing here, but we are not able to see the tax amount. So now the next step is generating tax liability in our books of accounts. So in order to do that, firstly, let us record a payment transaction. As we have made a purchases, let me make a payment to the party first. So in order to make a payment, let me create a bank ledger and provide opening balance for the bank ledger. From the voucher screen, to create a bank, I'll press Alt C. Commercial Bank of UAE. Let me create as Commercial Bank of UAE. Under bank accounts, we are unable to provide the opening balance from this screen. So let me create the bank ledger. From accounts info, ledgers, create. Commercial Bank of UAE. Under bank accounts, I'll select the list of I'll select Commercial Bank of UAE from the list of banks. I'll provide the opening balance. Save the ledger. We will now record the payment transaction to the party first. To record the payment entry, I'll select the account as Commercial Bank of UAE and the party as Al Rafi. As soon as we select the party, if the bills needs to be pre-allocated, you can press F12 configure. Again F12 for advanced configuration. Do enable the option pre-allocate bills for payment receipt general voucher to yes. I'll accept it. So now once I select the party ledger, I'll be getting the method of adjustments. I'll select against reference. You will get the list of bills against this party listed. You can select the appropriate bill and make a payment. So I'll select this bill. The payment transaction is recorded. You can provide the required instrument number and accept the transaction. We have now recorded the purchase transaction and made a payment to the party. Now the next step is to generate the tax liability and also increase the input tax credit. So if I am making a payment of tax behalf of the seller, then what happens? I should get the input tax credit as well. So in a single transaction, we will be able to we will be able to perform both the requirements, like increasing the tax liability as well as increasing the input tax credit. So in order to do that, we will go to the reverse charge report, or we can even record a journal voucher. So firstly, I'll show a transaction. To record a transaction from reports, reverse charge report. From here, you can click on Alt J Stat Adjustment. Nature of adjustment is which we need to select here. So here we are increasing the tax liability as well as input tax credit in one shot. So I'll select this. Additional details. So for what is the list of nature of adjustments that need to be selected? So this transaction is intra GCC purchase. So I'll select intra GCC purchase here. Is declared to customs? No. So here, what are we debiting and crediting? We will debit the same VAT ledger, enter the taxable value, and what is the tax value that need to be entered? As per the calculation, it was 6250. Credit VAT ledger. The amount appears automatically. We will accept this transaction. You can now observe here that earlier the liability booked column was blank and now the balance liability is nil. So we have booked the liability, hence the amount is appearing under liability booked column. Any doubts so far? Hope you all were able to understand this reverse charge transactions. If you have any doubts, please do let me know. You can text through chat or you can raise your questions in question section. We will continue the session. We will move on to the next transaction. So now we are in purchase and sales written section. So here, to experience purchase written and sales writtens, first let us record the purchase and sales transaction as per this illustration. So as per this illustration, as on 11th Jan, Al Shirawi Trading Company purchased the following taxable goods from Makmal Traders Dubai with supplier invoice number 3 and the VAT is charged at 5%. So to record this transaction, we have already created all the masters. We have all the masters, so we will quickly record this purchase transaction. It is similar to the transaction which we have already recorded. So to record the transaction, I've come for gateway of tally screen. From here, I'll go to accounting voucher screen. Click on F9 purchase. I'll enter the date. I'll enter the supplier invoice number. Date appears automatically. I'll select the party, Makmal Traders. As it is taxable purchases, let me select the purchase ledger as taxable purchase. Let us select name of item as coffee beans. Enter the quantity and rate as per the illustration. So we have to select the VAT ledger. We are selecting VAT ledger here. VAT is getting calculated. To view the calculations, you can click Alt A from any voucher creation screen. When I say any, it is purchase, sales, debit note and credit note. So wherever the tax is involved, I'll press escape. We have selected the reference bill-wise details. Let us save the transaction. Now, we will move on to the next illustration. The next illustration is sales transaction. To experience sales written, now we are supposed to record a sales transaction. Sales transaction is recorded as on 15th Jan. So Al Shirawi Trading Company sold the following goods to Fresh Beans, Dubai with reference number 3, charging VAT at 5%. So we will record this transaction, sales transactions in tally. From accounting voucher screen, I'll click on F8 sales. We will enter the reference number, select the party, Fresh Beans, select taxable sales ledger. I'm selecting sales ledger as taxable sales. I'll select the name of item as coffee beans. Enter the quantity as per illustration. Quantity rate details as per illustration. We will select VAT ledger. VAT is getting calculated. I'll select new reference for this transaction and save the transaction. We are done with recording purchase and sales transaction. So we will now start recording debit note and credit note against these purchase and sales which we have recorded. Mr. Mahesh, you have raised your hand for a query. So if you have any query, please do write in the question section. We will take up those questions. If not, we will proceed with the session. Everyone, if you have any doubts, you can raise it through question section. We will address your questions. Okay, thank you, Mahesh. We will proceed. So now the next step is recording of debit note transaction. So as we have recorded a purchase transaction, we will now record the debit note. Before recording debit note, firstly ensure that debit note is enabled for this particular company. So in order to enable debit notes, I'll come for Gateway of Tally, click F11 features. You can either go for accounting features or inventory. You will have an option, use debit and credit notes. I'll enable this option, and record credit notes in invoice mode. Let me enable this option as well. Record debit notes in invoice mode. So we have enabled these three options. I'm saving the accounting feature screen. Control A to save, or you can press enter and drill down. I'll come back to Gateway of Tally screen. Now to record the debit note, I'll go for accounting vouchers. You can observe that there's an option for debit note here. Control F9. The shortcut key is Control F9 debit note. So I'll click on this debit note. So enter the date as on 16th. So as per this illustration, the debit note is recorded as on 16th Jan. Al Sharawi Trading Company returned the following taxable goods to Makmal Traders, Dubai against the supplier invoice number 3. So the reason was quality was not good. So hence they have cancelled this purchases. So here we will provide the original invoice number as 3. So against this invoice, we are going to record the transaction, debit note transaction. Date is 11/1. I'll select the party as Makmal Traders. Taxable purchase. Select the stock item. Enter the quantity and rate. Very important, you have to select your VAT duty ledger even in your debit note transaction, debit and credit note transactions. I'll select VAT ledger. Enable the option provide VAT details. So here we have an option provide VAT details. I'll enable this option. Enter the original invoice number and date. So here you have an option for reason for returns. So it is cancelled. I'm selecting cancelled. In the screen, you are supposed to select the against reference. So against which purchase you're recording this debit note has to be selected. So against the purchase voucher number 3, we are recording this debit note. So I'm selecting the second reference, second pending bill. I'll press enter and save the transaction. Similarly, we will record the credit note. So Al Sharawi Trading Company received the following taxable goods from Fresh Beans. So now we will record this credit note transaction. Credit note is sales written which we are receiving. To record this transaction, I'll change the date as per illustration. Enter the original invoice number and the date of the voucher. I'll select the party. Party is Fresh Beans. taxable sales, stock item. I'll enter the quantity and rate as per illustration. So original taxable amount, and the tax amount. We will enter the tax amount here. Press enter. Here we will select the VAT duty ledger. You can observe even in this voucher, there's an option called as Alter Tax Analysis, on which you can click and view the tax analysis details. So provide VAT details, enable this option. Enter the original invoice number and date. Reasons for returns can be selected. So I'm selecting the reason as cancelled. It's not an overseas tourist. So let us disable that option. Select against reference. So here you have to track the bill against which you are recording this credit note. We are recording against the voucher number 3. So I'm selecting the voucher number 3. Press enter and accepting the transactions. Hope you all are able to understand. If not, please raise your questions through question section. Let us move on to the next illustration. The next concept is advance receipts. So in this section, we will learn how advance receipts are accounted and understand the applicable VAT rule. Al Sharawi Trading Company received an advance of AED 1,50,000 through check from Fresh Beans for the sale which will be made in the month of Feb 2020. So we have received an advance receipt. So how do we account this advance receipt? For all your advance receipts, if the sale is happening in the next month, so we are supposed to pay the tax, collect the tax and pay the tax to the department. So let us now handle this transaction in Tally. To record this transaction, let me come to Gateway of Tally. Mr. Mahesh has requested for updated a question stating, how can I see the part of seminar? We will update you at the end of the session. So let us now start accounting the advance receipts in Tally RP9. To record the advance receipt transaction, we will go to Gateway of Tally, Accounting Vouchers, click F6 Receipt. You can provide the date as per illustration. In account, I'm selecting Commercial Bank of UAE and the party is Fresh Beans. So once after selecting, so as soon as we select the bank or before selecting bank, as it is advance receipts, click on Alt V advance receipts. It's very important. Once we enter to receipt transaction, immediately you can click on Alt V advance transaction. Sorry, advance receipt. I've selected the bank ledger. Let me select the party now. The party is Fresh Beans. Once after selecting the party ledger, here we are getting the advance receipt details. So what is the advance amount the party has given? As per the illustration, it is AD 1,50,000. So I'm entering AD 1,50,000. So automatically the tax amount and taxable amount and tax amount is appearing here. The calculation is happening from backend. I'll just press enter. So here you have to select the type of reference. Let me select advanced reference and give the name. Give the name for the reference. I'm accepting this transaction. So we have recorded the advance receipt, accepting the transaction. Now let us check the advance receipt report. So to check, I'm coming to gateway of tally screen. We'll select display option, statutory report option, VAT. Under VAT form 201, we have advanced receipt report. Advanced receipt report. Let me go to advanced receipt summary. Here you can view that the transaction is appeared here as it is marked as advanced receipts. Here again you can view the same columns: total liability to be booked, liability booked, and balance liability. Since we have not yet booked the liability, here the liability booked column is showing as nil. We will now raise the tax liability. In order to raise the tax liability, from the same screen, we can click Alt-J Stat Adjustment, enter the details as increase of tax liability. So here we have selected increase of tax liability on account of advance receipts and select the emirate. Selected the emirate. So here we have to debit tax on advance ledger. If the ledger is not created, let us create the ledger by pressing Alt-C from the screen. So I'm creating tax on advance ledger. So I'm grouping it under current assets. Why is this grouped under current asset? Because the tax which is paid on advance is my current asset. So we will not enable any other option. Just accept this ledger and enter the amount here. So as per the calculation, it is 7142.86. So we have to take this amount from the tax amount and we are crediting VAT ledger. We are crediting the VAT ledger, enter the taxable value. So what is the taxable value? 1,42,857. This is as per the transaction calculation and the report. Enter and accept it. So we have accepted this transaction. So now let us check this advance receipt summary report. So you can observe that the liability booked, so it is showing the values in liability booked, and the balance liability is nil as we have already booked the liability. Now let us view the VAT form 201. To view VAT form 201 under VAT reports, I'll go for VAT 201. You can view that this transaction is reflecting under advance receipt. You can view the taxable value as well as the tax amount. Hope this is clear. Please confirm if we can proceed. If you have any doubts, please do let me know. Thank you for the responses. We will continue the session. If you all have any doubts, please do let me know. The next transaction is export to outside GCC countries. When we export goods or services to outside GCC countries, then it is not required to pay tax to the tax authority. So we will now account this transaction in the books of accounts. As on 22nd Jan, Al Shirabi Trading Company sold the following taxable goods to Sun Coffee Traders, India. So now let us record this transaction in our books of accounts. In order to do this, we require to create two ledgers, exports outside GCC ledger and Sun Coffee Traders ledger. To create, I'll come for gateway of tally, accounts info, ledgers, create. So let us create the ledger exports outside GCC under sales accounts. Nature of transaction. So here we have to select the nature as exports. Once we select exports, you can observe that the taxability is selected as 0 rated, as I already said that it is not required to pay the tax to the tax authority. So here let me select the type of supply as goods. We have created exports outside GCC sales ledger. I'm accepting the ledger. We will create the party Sun Coffee Traders. Under sundry debtors, enable the option maintain balances bill by bill. Select the country. I'm selecting it as India as per the illustration, as we are exporting to India from UAE. Created with the party ledger. I'm accepting the party ledger. We will now record this transaction in tally. To record the export transaction, I'll come for gateway of tally, select accounting vouchers and click F8 for sales transaction. I'll change the date as per illustration. I'll enter the reference number. Select the party. So the party is Sun Coffee Traders. We will select Sun Coffee Traders here. Sales ledger. We are selecting the sales ledger as exports outside GCC. Select the stock item. Enter quantity and rate details as per illustration. This is an exempted transaction. To view the tax implication, before accepting this transaction, anytime you can click on Alt-A tax analysis. So you can see that there is no tax applicable for this transaction. I'll press escape and accept this entry. After recording this transaction, you can view the tax implication in VAT written, VAT form 201. Is there any doubt still now? We have completed with the export to outside GCC country nature of transaction. Thank you for your responses. We will continue with the session. So as per our plan, the next transaction is, one second. The next transaction is exempt supply. The next concept is exempt supply. So we will start with exempt supply now. As per VAT law, few types of goods and services are exempted from tax. This means it is not required to pay the tax and claim input tax from the tax authority. So there are few list of goods and services. So for example, it is education services, domestic public transportation, healthcare services, financial services, etc. So these are like exempted from tax. So let us now record one transaction for exempted supply. So as per the illustration, it is Al Sharawi Trading Company sold residential property of AED 5 lakh to Shafiq Abu Dhabi with reference number 5. So we will now record this transaction in Tally. To record this transaction, we are required to create the ledgers like residential property and a sales account. Nature of transaction is domestic exempt supplies. So sale of residential property is exempted from tax. Domestic exempt supplies, goods. I'll accept this ledger. So now let us create the party master as Shafiq. Sundry debtors, Shafiq under sundry debtors. Enable the option maintain balance is bill by bill. Country is selected as UAE and he belongs to Abu Dhabi. I'll select Abu Dhabi. So he's not registered under VAT. We are just making a sale to this person. So I'll select unregistered dealer. For the customers who are not registered under VAT, you can go with unregistered dealer option. There's a provision provided here. I'll accept this ledger. Now let us record this transaction. We will record this transaction. The date is 25th Jan. From Gateway of Tally, we will select accounting vouchers. Enter the date. Enter reference number. So in this transaction, we are not dealing with stock item. We are dealing with residential property, which we have created as ledger. So in order to account this, so we are changing the sales voucher from item invoice mode to accounting invoice mode. In order to change, you can see an option Alt-I accounting invoice. I'll click on this option Alt-I accounting invoice. I'll select the party Shafiq, accept it, and select residential property. Enter the amount as per illustration. This is an exempted transaction, so no need of selecting your tax ledger. Yes, if you want to check the tax analysis, you can still check. There's no tax calculation here. I'll press escape. Let me accept this transaction. So we are done with the sales transaction. Let us make a receipt. So whenever you want, you can record a receipt transaction against this particular sales. So in this receipt as well, there is no tax implication. So We will not record this transaction as of now. So we will move on to the next topic. The next topic is inclusive of tax. What is inclusive of tax? Inclusive of tax refers to the total amount of goods and services in which the tax amount will be included. So the total value of goods is included with tax amount is called inclusive of tax. In Tally ERP9, we can configure inclusive of tax details in stock item and record inclusive of tax sales transaction with ease. So let us now record this transaction. As on 25th Jan, Al Sharawi Trading Company sold the following stock item to Raw Cafe Company, Sharjah, with the reference number 6, and the price is inclusive of tax. So in order to record this transaction, so we are supposed to create Raw Cafe Company ledger and Roasted Coffee Beans ledger. We will now record this transaction in Tally by creating the required masters. To create the master, as you all have experienced, it has to be created from accounts info ledgers create. We will quickly create the master. The party ledger is Raw Cafe to be created under sundry debtors. Select the country and select the emirate as per illustration. It is Sharjah. Enter the tax registration number, 15-digit number. I'll accept this transaction. Sorry, I've accepted the ledger. Now let me create inventory master. So as per illustration, we have to create an item called roasted coffee beans. So let us create the item in stock item as roasted coffee beans. Select the unit of measure as kgs. So from the stock item creation screen, click F12 configure. You have an option allow inclusive of tax for stock items. So this option must be set to yes. I'm repeating the option allow inclusive of tax for stock items. I'm enabling this option to yes. You can view here there's an additional option is inclusive of duties and taxes. Do enable this option. And you can accept the transaction. Now let us record the purchase transaction. As we doesn't have any opening balance, we are recording a purchase transaction. We are purchasing it from Makmal Traders. So can you all observe there is a change in this purchase voucher? So it is in account invoice mode as we had changed for previous transaction for a sales. So I'm changing the mode again to item invoice. Yes, perfect. We are selecting the party name, Makmal Traders. Purchase, it's a taxable purchase. It's a taxable goods, roasted coffee bean. So while purchasing, it is not inclusive. While making, we are making an inclusive supply. So I'll enter the quantity and rate. We will select the VAT ledger. VAT ledger is selected. Let me accept this purchase transaction. Is this clear? We are just recording this purchase transaction to have an opening balance of the stock item. We can either give opening balance in the stock item creation screen or record a purchase transaction. So done with recording purchase transaction. Now we will move on to recording the sales transaction. To record the sales transaction from accounting voucher, From the same screen, we can click on F8 sales. Here, I'll enter the reference number. You all can observe that here we have name of item, quantity, rate and amount. So in order to account inclusive of tax, we need a separate column like rate with inclusive of tax. So click F12 configure. For any kind of additional configuration required in the accounting voucher screen, you can click F12 configure option and enable the option allow entry of rate inclusive of tax for stock item to yes. So we are setting this option to yes. You can observe on setting it to yes, there is an additional option rate inclusive of tax here. Now let us record this transaction. So the party is Raw Cafe. Sales, it's a taxable sales as it is taxable goods. Roasted coffee beans. So I'm making a sale of entire 100 kg. Rate, I'm entering it as per illustration. You can observe. So the rate inclusive of tax is 600 and the rate excluding taxes 571. I'll press enter. We are supposed to select the VAT ledger here. I'll select VAT here. To view the VAT implication, you can click Alt-A, Tax Analysis, and Alt-F1, Detailed. So this is your assessable value on which the duty amount is appearing here. I'll press Escape here. Select the reference, bill-wise reference, and accept the transaction. We have done with recording of inclusive of transactions. So hope you all have understood this inclusive of tax concept and the other concepts whichever taught so far. In case if you have any doubts, please do ask me. You can chat or raise it through question section. Please do let me know and please confirm for continuation of the session. Hope the session is clear. Please do let me know. Hello everyone. Please do respond. Hope the session is clear. We will continue to the next topic. The next concept is zero rated supplies. Zero rated supplies are the supplies which are taxable at zero rate. Under GCC, there are few supplies which are taxable at zero rate like international services, essential medicines, basic food items and export of goods. So all this comes under zero rated supplies. Any businesses dealing with these goods and services are not required to pay the tax to the authority as it is zero rated. So the next concept is Al-Shirawi Trading Company. Let us assume that Al-Shirawi Trading Company has diversified its business and entered into the dealing of medical equipments like wheelchairs, exam light, exam table, etc. And all these goods are taxable at zero rate. So it is a medical equipment like wheelchairs. It is exempted it is taxable at zero rate. So let us now record this transaction in Tally. To record this transaction, the purchase transaction, let us create the master, required master. I'll create ledger, gold center. You can observe all Shiravi Trading Company purchased the following goods from Gold Center. So we have to create a ledger for purchase, zero rated purchase, Gold Center and wheelchair, stock item wheelchair. So we will now create Gold Center as my sundry creditors. Let us provide the VAT registration number. Created with the party ledger. We will create the ledger purchase ledger. Purchase zero rated. Under purchase accounts, nature of transaction will be selected as domestic zero rated purchase. You can observe that the taxability is by default selecting as zero rated on selecting nature of transaction. Type of supply is selected as goods. I'll accept this purchase transaction, purchase ledger. Now let us create the stock item. To create the stock item, let's go to inventory info, stock items, create. We will create wheelchair. So it is measured in numbers. I'm creating a unit of measure as numbers. Is it a taxable item? No, it's a zero rated item. I'm selecting it as zero rated. Goods. Is it inclusive? No, it's not inclusive. I'll accept it. So now let us record the purchase transaction. Accounting voucher. F9 purchase. So as per illustration, we will check the date and the transaction details. So now we will record this transaction. Date, I'll enter the date. Supplier invoice number. Party account name. So the party is Gold Center. I'll select the party. Purchases, purchase zero rated. We will select wheelchair, enter the quantity as 100, rate as per illustration. As it is zero rated, no need of selecting tax ledger in this transaction. I've accepted the transaction. We will move on to the next transaction. Next is zero rated supply. So we are making a sales. So in order to record this transaction, let us see what are the ledgers required. Al Shiravi Trading Company sold the following goods to Cora Center, Dubai with reference number details. Fine. Let us now create the required ledger. The required ledgers are Cora Center, which is a party ledger, and sales zero rated ledger. Cora Center under sundry debtors. Maintain balances bill by bill is set to years. We have provided the party state details. So If the registration number is not 15 digit, Tally gives you an error message. It validates your digits count. Accept the party. So I'm accepting the party creation screen. So let us create the sales ledger. Sales 0 rated. Sales 0 rated is created under sales account. We will select the nature of transaction as domestic 0 rated supplies. Under goods, accept it. We will record the sales transaction. To record, will come for accounting vouchers, F8 sales. We will check the illustration once. As on 27th, so company has made a sales to Cora Center. Okay, we will record this transaction. Reference number, Cora Center. Sales 0 rated. We will select the sales ledger as sales 0 rated. Wheelchair. Okay, so here we are getting rate inclusive of tax. So after recording inclusive tax transaction, you can click F12 configure and disable this option. Allow entry of rate inclusive of tax for stock item to no. And I'll accept it. I'll select the stock item wheelchair. Enter the quantity and rate as per illustration. So we are not selecting VAT ledger here as it is an exempted transaction. We have recorded this transaction. We'll move on to the next transaction, next illustration. The next illustration is accounting of service transactions. In this section, we will learn to account service related transaction, rendering of repairs and maintenance services to customers. Let us assume Al Sharawi Trading Company diversified its business and started providing automobile services to customers, and these services attract VAT. So let us maintain service details as well in Tally ERP9. So here the transaction is Al Sharawi Trading Company provided taxable repairs and maintenance services to JK Group, Dubai at AED 1 lakh with reference number 8. So in order to record this transaction, we require two ledgers to be created. One is repairs and maintenance service. The other one is JK Group. So we are making a sales. Okay, to record the transaction, we will create the required masters. The masters required are from gateway of, to create the masters, I'll go to gateway of Tally accounts info ledgers, create. Here, let us create repairs and maintenance services. It is a service ledger which we are creating and we are accounting services now. Repairs and maintenance services is created under sales accounts. Nature of transaction, so it is domestic taxable supplies. I'll select domestic taxable supplies, taxable 5%. So we will select type of supply as services. Accept the ledger. So why have we selected the type of supply as services? Because this is a service ledger and we are rendering services, taxable services. So it's done. Let us create the party as JK Group under Sundry Debtors. You can provide the TRN number. Let me accept the party creation screen. Now we will record the transaction as per illustration. So they have provided the service to the extent of 81 lakh. In order to record the transaction, I'll come for accounting vouchers, F8, enter the date as per the transaction illustration. So here I'm getting name of item and this is an item invoice mode. As we are accounting for services, let me change the mode to accounting invoice mode. Make sure whenever you're dealing with an item, you can go with item invoice mode. If not, please do select accounting invoice mode. JK Group, repairs and maintenance services. Yes, so here we will enter the amount. Select VAT ledger. VAT is getting calculated. To view the details, you can click like VAT calculation details. You can click on Alt A tax analysis, Alt F1 for detailed. Press Escape. Accept this transaction. And similar to the same transaction, I'll record one more transaction. This is just to show the exceptions in the reporting section. So I'm recording one more sales transaction. Let us assume we have provided the same repair and maintenance services to JK Group to the extent of 75,000, and here we are selecting VAT ledger. VAT is getting calculated automatically, right? 3,750 AD. Let us change this amount manually to 4,000. So I'm editing the VAT amount. I'm increasing it. Let us see what happens in the system. So I'll click Alt A tax analysis. Here the tax is getting calculated like based on the tax rate. Here you can observe as per calculation it is 3,750, but as per transaction we have manually changed in the transaction and made it to 4,000. So that information we are getting here. I'll press escape. While accepting this transaction as well, we will get a warning message like tax amount does not match the value calculated as per set tax rate. So I will ignore this warning message and accept it. And let's see what is the implication of this. I'll accept this. So we have done with recording of transactions. We will move on to the next step. So after recording the transaction, we will move on to the reporting part. So in the reporting section, first of all, we will see how to print the VAT invoice. To print the VAT invoice, let us go to Gateway of Tally, Display, Daybook. I'll give full period and select any of your sales voucher. I'll select sales. To print, you have to click Alt P. Here we have given an option print type. So on selecting single and selecting print language as English, so you will be able to print the invoice in English. So firstly, let us print in English. Oh, I did not enable the preview option. So make sure to enable the preview option. I'll click on Alt P. So I have not enabled preview option. Click Alt I with preview. So selected the print type as single, print language as English. Yes. Now let's press Alt Z to zoom the invoice. This is the preview of the invoice. We have selected the language as English. So we are getting it in English. So this is the VAT details, VAT percentage and assessable value, tax amount details. Let me press escape, escape. Let me print the invoice, selecting the other available options. I'll go with single. What is the other option? Arabic. So let me go with Arabic now. We just saw the invoice in English. We will see it in Arabic. One second. Let me check this. I'll go back to the same screen once again to just check with the behavior. Let me select bilingual and check what's the behavior. Due to some technical issue, I'm not able to show the invoice in Arabic now, but once you select here as single and Arabic, you will be able to generate the invoice in Arabic. You can try this on your system and let me know. And let us know in case if you have any doubts. So this must work. Nextly, let us go to the statutory report. So to view statutory report, I'll go for display, statutory report, VAT 201. So once you enter into this report, you will be able to see all the nature of transactions which you have selected and recorded the transactions. So here are the list of transactions which you have recorded. You can also see balance VAT payable. Tally will automatically consider your input, output and calculate whether it is a VAT payable or VAT refundable from your end. So in this case, the balance VAT payable amount is 10,000. Okay, so before you can see here we have recorded one transaction and edited the tax amount manually. So that particular transaction is appearing in incorrect mismatch in information. So we will just check each and every option like what it is and how it is useful. So written summary is the section which has total number of vouchers for the period. So these are the total number of vouchers. We have recorded 20 vouchers included in written. So these 17 vouchers are included in returns. So there are two vouchers which is not included in returns. Let us drill down on this. So this is mostly the payment transaction and receipt transaction which we have made to the party and receipt which we have received from the party. As it does not have any VAT in this, so it is appearing as not relevant for returns. It is appearing in the section not relevant for returns. Now let us check incomplete mismatch in information to be resolved. So what is this section? So let us enter on this. You can view here that number of vouchers with incomplete or mismatch in information. So those vouchers will appear under the head incomplete or mismatch in information to be resolved. So before we move on to make a payment or export the VAT return form, we have to resolve these exceptions. So I'll drill down on this. Mismatch due to tax amount modified in voucher. Select, enter. You can just press enter. On pressing enter, you will get the details. So what is this? The tax amount as per calculation is 3,750, but as per the transaction we have altered and made it to 4,000. So there's a difference of 250. So in order to resolve this, you can simply click on Alt R resolve and click on recompute. So it will recompute automatically, or you can even manually enter it. I'll press enter and accept. On accepting it, you can see that this transaction has disappeared from here. I'll press escape, escape. So you can see here that there is no incomplete mismatch in information to be resolved appearing here. As well, earlier the balance VAT payable was different and now it has been increased. So earlier the incomplete mismatch in information transaction was not considered in computing a balance VAT payable amount. Now all the transactions are considered and we are good to continue. So now let us make a VAT payment transaction. So we got to know what is the VAT payment amount. So in order to record a payment transaction, we can directly click Alt S Start Payment. From the same screen, we can record a payment transaction. I'll click Alt S. So this is for the period of January month. VAT regular payment. Yes, we are making a payment for VAT regular payment. Using which bank? I'm using Commercial Bank of UAE and making a payment. You can give the check details here or it can be entered in the report as well. So I'll not enter it here. Let me show how to enter these details. I'll accept it. We have done with recording of payment transaction. Can you all observe that the balance VAT payable is nil? As we have already paid the VAT, it is coming under VAT paid column. And the tax payment included, we have one transaction. So by this, we have recorded the VAT payment transaction to the department. Is it clear, everyone? Are you all able to follow? In case of any doubts, please let me know. We will continue the session. After recording the VAT payment transaction, we will view the tax payment reconciliation report. So this is the report. Here you can click on Alt S Set Details and set your details. Set your payment details. So what is the deposit date, name of bank, name of branch, bank or SWIFT code, acknowledgement number, instrument date, mode of deposit. All these details can be entered here. As of now, we are not entering it. To export the VAT form, we will now export the VAT form as we have already made a payment. We are ready to export the VAT form. In order to do that, from VAT form 201, we will click on Control P VAT form. So the acceptable format is PDF. Acceptable format from FTA. FTA stands for Federal Tax Authority is PDF. So we are not able to change the format. By default, it is taking PDF. Provide all the required details and click on Yes to export. VAT returns got exported. The next topic is Federal Tax Authority audit file. So FTA will audit businesses at its convenience to ensure that businesses are making accurate and timely tax declarations. So for this, as a business, it has to generate common audit process. I mean, they are following a FTA audit process. It is common for FTA to request certain accounting information from business in order to verify the information submitted. So in Tally, we have FAF file, which is standard electronic file, and it has been requested by FTA. Now let us check how to generate this. In order to generate the audit file from VAT form 201, we will click on Alt A audit file. vouchers with exception. There's no vouchers with exception. So everything has been resolved. So here I'll click on Control E, export. I'll click on yes to export. So the VAT audit file has been exported. We have covered all the topics as per the agenda. So for any doubts, please feel free to text, chat, or you can ask through question session. If you have any doubts, please let us know. Hope you all have understood. If there's no doubts, we will close the session. We will end the session. Is that fine? Please do respond. Please do respond and share your feedbacks. Hope the session was clear. Please do share your feedbacks. Thank you for attending the session.